Yeah, what's up guys? Inco here with another build video, another 100, another week. And this one is a int stacking ward looper. Now for this we are not using ward shatter, we're not using celestial mathematics. This is actually us doing the damage, and that is achieved through stacking int, getting a bunch of flat lightning from Jaquani's staff. And we convert that int not only to flat lightning, but also energy shield thanks to Faith Guard, and that converts that energy shield to ward for us, giving us extra defense. And that's even further insanely strong with the Vorana Timeless Jewel, because this basically caps our PDR permanently and our chance to evade attacks. So I prepared a bunch of stuff to show you guys, show you how busted this is. This on top of minion pact is definitely getting killed next league. So I'll just show some Uber Pinnacle bosses. Nothing. It's kind of hard to calculate this damage, by the way. I'll talk about that later, but just safe to say the damage is yes. And later I'll show a full juice breach map with insane life and life is extra to like showcase as tanky as possible. Then we'll go AFK this, and I'll talk more in depth about the stuff, the interactions and everything. And this will give me time to talk since we can just AFK it. And I can talk about all the interactions in that. I'll probably only show, I don't know how much of the breach map I'll show, so the video is not that long. But yeah. The two weaknesses to ward builds, just to cover that first off, are obviously dots and flash siphoner, which I don't notice flash siphoner because we have like screen coverage. Our ball lightnings basically go in a big circle around us, and our hex blast has a very large target, and it also explodes because everything's cursed, and then hex blast explodes it, does that area damage. And then we take Boon of the Mountain to mitigate dots. And you can further take Least Shade if you need, but I did not find it necessary at all. And we get 10% from Arakali, Major Pantheon. And outside of that, if you ever feel like you need more sustain or whatever, you can throw in the more Iron Flasks because they're permanently being popped, and we get recovered 4% of life when you use the flask. So like the more you put in, the more recovery you're going to get. So like, for example, you could take out this Onslaught Flask, and that's going to be even more sustain. You also don't have to reserve, like even in this fight, for example, there's like Aspect of the Aven would give us more damage, so I could put that on. But like Flesh and Stone's not going to do anything because all the damage is from Shaper off screen, and he's not in my Flesh and Stone aura to take less damage anyway. So you don't have to use those. This is not a 2 dust build, so we don't waste 5 jewel slots. We actually have good jewels that we can use. And we are achieving that by doing 3. So we have the Zombie of Falling, Skeletons, and SRS. And that enables our loop. So you actually get to use good jewels instead of 2 dust. And Pathfinder lets us easily sustain all of our flasks. Not just, you know, the Iron Flask from Regenerative Runes. So we have 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You could technically get like a 5 jewel or do 4 and take like a Enduring Sigil for permanent endurance charges, but I do not find this necessary at all and complete overkill. And on top of that, you could, if you did 5, you could min-max your clusters. Let's see what we get here real quick. And talking about that, to min-max the clusters, I did not want to go back and do this because I had already min-maxed my clusters when I realized it. Like these are perfectly set up for like resistances and instant intelligence and everything. But if you wanted to min-max, you would do a fasting Life from Death and a Fasting Blessed Rebirth. And what that does is that allows you to drop this Brood from Potency over here for a node like Pressure Points that gives us giga damage. Because we're a crit. We're also a invert the rules build. So we invert resistances. That is why we're not using conductivity. We're using punishment. So enemies take increased damage on low life, and it also debilitates them to make them do more damage or do less damage. So don't take any forms of exposure and stuff on that. That's why we have like no exposure on our gloves. Like I said, no curse. We're using punishment and Assassin's Mark. Let me go into the map real quick. Let me put on my mapping flask. And like I said, this is, so I put more life on here, and life has extra ES. On top of this, more tanky mods could be reduced damage from crits and suppression. But I was getting tired of like trying to roll for at least 3 of them, so we'll just show this. We just have an Astrolabe. I'm really tired of Breach. I'm just showing some of this just to show that it trivializes the content, essentially. But this would be like your full juice Breach. Doing Exarch, my Breach tree. Everything's right there, yep. And our AG and Spectre, because you'll notice the supports like aren't really anything. That is why these 2 jewels are super important. I didn't talk about. This makes it so that your loop is constantly up. So like if you're, for example, Shaper, if you don't have this on, you cannot AFK Shaper because when he beams, he's just going to kill your minions that respawn. So this makes it so that they can't be damaged, but they can still expire and die and keep your ward loop going. So this is very important. And then Life from Death. This gives like infinite life regen for our Spectres and our Animate Guardian because 4% on minion death and then 2% if they died recently. And then we have Perma-Convocation too on top of that. And the Spectres we have are Perfect Pain Artist for Zealotry and Crit Multi. Spirit of Fortune for Wrath and Lucky Hit with lightning damage. And then Perfect Force Tagger for haste and frenzy charges. And we'll talk about the rest. So just weapon swap, start the loop, put your stuff on. I'll go to boss real quick to kill him. Not that it kind of really matters on this build because you kind of just kill so much on the way. Then I'll do some breaches and then we can like hop over to POB and talk about stuff. Because it's kind of hard to calculate the damage on this build. Oh, one thing I do want to talk about. I did not feel like I needed stun immunity on this build at all. I did play with it for a while, but I took it off and honestly I do not notice any difference. But you're free to use a flash suffix. It only takes 1 on Pathfinder. And oh, here's a boss. So you see his shield melts, he dies instantly. That is 152% more life, 100% deli, 125% as extra ES, just melts. Like I was saying, it's hard to calculate DPS on here because all the ball lanings, you see them all around me. Every instance of a ball laning hits 13 times before it expires. Then on top of that, we have the Hex Blast, obviously, with the curses. So this is the only one that you want to avoid, that Flask one, obviously, on the altar. You can take anything else. But yeah, we also have the Rune Graft of Time on top of that. So when you calculate in double damage, invert resistances, like these proccing multiple times, not taking a cooldown on your... I can show you how fast they proc, actually. Let me put them on the toolbar. The Hex Blast and Ball Lightning of Static. So they have like a cooldown of 0.1 second, 0.07 seconds here. They're proccing a lot. So like you'll see in the POB I only have like 3, but it's like nothing. And then on top of that we have Oath of Spring, which is insanely strong. 98 sacks this. Like if you go back and look at the boss footage, you'll see sometimes they die before it even gets to 98 just because, you know, the build's balanced. But yeah, this is let me see if I can get another boss real quick. 0 FPS gameplay. And you don't really notice flash siphoners on this build. I guess if you like run directly into them. Like there, speaking of, we just ran into one. Our Wardloop is... Okay, we died. Oh, so that's nasty. That is the one interaction that we will die to. Blast Siphoner instead of inside of a proxy shield. That's toxic. That is one that... Let me see if I can actually run in. I don't know where he's at. Frame rate is terrible. There he is. Yeah, so he's going to be like... That's nasty. That's toxic. Normally you don't notice Flash Siphoners. But that example is disgusting. Flash Siphoner and Proxy Shield. Because the ball lightnings aren't going to hit it. And the Hex Blast also doesn't go through that. So funny enough, that specific instance that I think I've only ever seen one other time happens when I'm recording the video. And yeah, that's like the one you have to watch out for. So with the POB, we'll swap over here. Let me open it. Also the POB for, I talked about the spectres. I do want to talk about with them. You want to hit the breakpoint of 25, and that can either be achieved by like a lower in power and a +2 minion. Like I have +2 minion, but you could also just do whatever on your helmet and have Awaken in power 5. That's another option. That'll take the Spectre to 25. But you basically just want to hit that threshold with 3 specters. So you'll see I have 3 instances of this. And, oh, I wanted to show how fast it was proccing. Let me actually go back in there. I'll try to avoid the toxic mob that just wanted to completely counter me in this video, I guess. So you can see how fast the Hex Blast and Ball Lightning are proccing on the bottom right of the screen. And so having said that, it's kind of hard to calculate like how much damage we're doing, and I don't really want to go through and calculate the exact triggers and try to average it all personally, but it's safe to say the damage is just yes. You know, let's go for him again. Where's he at? Oh, we got him. Hell yeah. 3rd time's the charm. Okay, let's hop back over to POB. So, having said that, I have it set up to 3 counts, like 3 uses of the Ball Lightning and Hex Blast. And you see the damage is already insane. This is the AG config, punishment having less effect for the low life. 98, this is the Oath of Spring, which just to show how strong this jewel is in this build. If you take this out, that's 34% more damage. It is dirt cheap. Like these were, I think, like 50 chaos a pop. And insane value for Pathfinder on top of that. And if you want to know the AG gear, swap over here to the AG tab. You have Kingmaker, obviously. This gives Culling Strike. Rarity, which is, you know, cute. Crit Multi. Fortification, which I have those in the config. And then on top of that, we take Leercast, just because our AG is immortal and like just perma healing. You could really use whatever helmet you want. Leercast is better than a elevated nearby enemies take increased elemental damage helmet. We have Garb of the Ephemeral. This makes us immune to crits, and our action speed cannot be lowered. Our AGs and Spectres are permanently on top of us, so these are non-conditional things. Whereas most builds, you can outrun them or get out of their area. They're permanently on us. And I use Hand of Hearsay, but this is optional. You can use whatever gloves you want. Excommunicate's cute. Makes enemies not able to deal chaos damage. You can obviously use Southbound, but it's kind of overkill. The important thing here is to cap chaos res. So AG by default has 20% chaos res. So you want to buy a 20% hybrid fracture boot mod. It can be fire and chaos, it can be lightning and chaos, it can be cold and chaos. And then you're rolling with chaos essences because you went 35, 55 plus 20, 75, so that caps them. And you're looking for life regen. And then from there, the prefixes, you're looking for life, whatever else. And importantly, you want to give him sapped ground and increase life regen rate. Life regen rate's kind of whatever, but there's not really much else to put. The important thing is he's also adding sapped ground, which isn't in the config. And swap back over to the gear. I do have all the imbues in here. And like same thing with Heroic Tragedy. All my gear, all my imbues. You can obviously swap stuff. You can use different imbues. They don't have to be exact. Like, look at other options. They're probably way cheaper, especially since more people have been playing this build and asking about it in the stream. And I'm sure after this video, it's going to be even further enhanced. So just be smart about specifically the imbues you're buying, going through your Heroic Tragedy. Most of the budget in this build is going to be the Simplex, the Heroic Tragedy, and your 184 Ration Flask, which those have also went up. When I started the build, I bought mine for 70 divines. Last I checked, I think they were like 100 at base. We look at an 84. Okay, yeah, there's still like 100, so they went up like 30 divines. And that's going to be, I'm using this lightly, majority of your budget. Everything else I crafted. So obviously if you craft stuff yourself, you're going to save a lot. Most of these are fracturing, getting either the suffixes or the prefixes done. I think most of them are suffixes. The only one that's prefixes done is the chest. And then that is just a Reforged Fizz, PDR, and craft attributes. So once you get the prefixes, that's easy. But the other ward ones, you're like prefix jail. And that's just achieved through Eldritch currency crafting. I think that's about everything. Do make sure you're running Eternal Blessing on your Purity of Elements. But like I said, I have all the imbues in here. I did talk about the clusters. We are Profane Ground, Rational Doctrine, we're Additional Curse. Talked about min-maxing that. I don't have it in here, but that's a lot more damage. So yeah, this build is really busted. I'm not going to do the math calculations myself for the damage, but suffice to say, it trivializes all content. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy that. If you have any questions, you can ask in the stream or comments. Till the next one, have a good one, guys.